welcome into the episode of Patrick Jones Baseball. This week on the podcast, we have Justin Ebert. Justin is currently the hitting coach and recruiting coordinator at Greensboro College in North Carolina. Great episode. Really enjoyed talking with Justin, and he talks a lot about the Greensboro and how they've really evolved as a program and how the program continues to get better and better. Talk about his own background as a coach. He actually used to coach travel baseball too, and even just the last couple of years, he was coaching travel baseball before becoming full-time coach. So he has a good perspective and a good handle on recruiting, and so he gives some really good insight into that. And then we also dive into some hitting, and you learn more about his own personal hitting philosophy and how he goes about working with his hitters. So it's great stuff. We'll put all of the Greensboro College's links, Twitter handle, and things like that in the show notes, and I think you're going to like this one. So appreciate you for listening, and here is my episode with Justin Ebert. All right, Justin, we're now live on the podcast. First of all, I appreciate you for coming on today.
Absolutely. Again, thank you for having me, man. I really appreciate this opportunity.
I always like to start off, and obviously, I've done some background work on you, your bio and things like that. I'm always curious to kind of hear the origin story of each guest and, just how they got to where they're at. So would you mind kind of giving everyone a little bit of a background on you and just maybe even growing up, playing the game, things like that? Like, did you envision yourself one day becoming a coach? Is this like, man, I never in a million years would have ever thought I'd be where I am 5 years ago type of thing? Like, give everyone a little bit of your background.
Yeah, for sure. Baseball's kind of always been a love for me. It's something I picked up on super early. Like, you can talk to my parents and stuff. I was always the kid, that big Red Sox fan, grew up in Rhode Island around the time they broke the curse. And I'm in the backyard reciting the whole lineup from 1 to 9 and reenacting certain moments in big time games. And that's kind of who I've always been. Baseball is kind of my first love, and it still is. I never kind of knew if I was going to get into the coaching world. I just was head forward, focusing on my playing career, and I grew up around some really good people in the game. I got into it very young. My older brother was at this facility playing, and, I was a 5-year-old kid wanting to play with 10-year-olds. And one day the coach there was just like, yeah, you know what? Let him have his run at it. And he said I stood out a little bit and I had some tools. And that guy actually, his name was Derek Graham, and played in the Reds organization for a little bit. And I got to learn under him from about 5 to 15 years old, and then kind of got into showcase ball there. Played with the Canes, again, around a lot of really good minds and baseball minds and stuff like that, and seeing how big time programs run it. And then high school ball, I still, to this day, I think I played with one of the best high school coaches in all of North Carolina. Sam, truly learned a lot from him. I talk to him every day still, for the most part, reach out to him about potential guys he might have for us. But again, just getting as many tips and advice as I can from him. And it's kind of funny, they kind of foresaw my future a little more than I did. Those guys kind of always told me that they could 100% see me being a coach in my future. All that's going through my head as a kid going through high school and colleges, I'll worry about that when I get to that. I want to play baseball as long as I can. And then I was fortunate enough to get an offer to go play at High Point University. And I'm sure you saw in the background, dealt with some injuries. Never going to be the guy that uses that as excuses, but it just didn't pan out the way I wanted to. And baseball came to an end a little quicker than I had hoped for. And got into coaching showcase ball after that, see if this is a route I wanted to take. And after coaching a 16U team for the summer, I definitely was interested in it. I was okay, I kind of want to do this at a higher scaled level though. And I reached out to the head coach here, Coach Fennessy. I was actually a part of the staff at High Point that recruited me at the time. So had that relationship with him, and just so happened he had an opportunity for me to come work here. And that's kind of what got me here. And I've enjoyed every second of it, man. And I feel at home. I feel like this is what I'm meant to do. This is my calling. So just trying to make the most of it day in and day out.
And I also saw that when you were at High Point, you minored in psychology, which you working with hitters now, I'd imagine that comes in handy.
Yeah, no, it does. Honestly, I went in originally as just an exercise science major. I feel like that's kind of a prototypical baseball guy. You either go in as business or exercise science, something within that realm. But the more and more I was there, I got really intrigued with psychology stuff. So I added a minor, I think, towards the end of my sophomore year. And honestly, going back, if I could, I probably would have chose to major in psychology. Just the way the brain works, the way that side of things work. One, it's good to know for life, but also for baseball. It's taught me a lot. It taught me a lot how to communicate with these kids, how to work through struggles that you may have. Like you said, it's an important part to baseball that I think gets overlooked a lot, is the psychology and the mindfulness behind playing baseball and helping kids to not get too high with the goods and not get too low with the bats. I mean, baseball is a game of failure. You've heard that from a little kid. You're going to fail a lot more than you're going to succeed in this game. And so it's definitely shaped me a little bit and helped me to be able to communicate with kids effectively.
Just going off of that, what's one way you've been able to help guys with their mental game, if you want to call it that, as a hitting coach?
Yeah, especially with a lot of the younger kids that come in as freshmen, they're used to being the guy. at their high school. And then they get to this level and everybody was the guy when you get to this level, and they get a reality check. We talk about it a lot here is when we're recruiting kids that as much as we want to see you succeed, we want to see you fail too, because we want to see how you respond to failure. We're going to have our hands there to help you back up, but we want to see you get knocked down. And I think that's kind of been a way that I've been able to really help out on, and especially in game. Last year when I wasn't the hitting coach, like this is my first year being the full-time hitting coach here, I was almost like the by proxy dugout coach in a sense. And that's when I really got to put that to work. And it's just talking to kids. It doesn't matter if it's the sixth inning and nothing's gone our way for 6 innings. It doesn't matter. It takes 1 inning to turn this game around, and being able to help kids recognize that just because something hasn't gone your way for 2 at-bats, 3 at-bats, you could change that with 1 at-bat. And you take it 1 at-bat at a time, 1 pitch at a time, and let the rest take care of itself. I preach a lot to our hitters. It's just focusing on what we control is not the outcome of an at-bat. What we can control is what we swing at, what pitches we are choosing to attack, what zones we're choosing to attack, understanding how a pitcher wants to pitch you and things like that. So that's a lot of the points of emphasis I have with our kids.
What's an area specifically, speaking from a hitting coach standpoint, like when guys come in as freshmen, like, and it might be having to do something to do with hitting, maybe nothing to do with hitting, but what's an area where you've seen guys come in and maybe they're a little bit behind in a specific area? It could be the mental game. It could be something off the field, but just for freshmen, I'm just trying to think of a piece of advice we could give high school kids or parents who are listening to this on some things that they can maybe do now that would help them by the time they got to college.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the biggest things that we've talked about is establishing a routine. You don't see that as much at the high school level, depending on who you've worked with and what coaches. Some are good about it. But at the college level, you kind of have to have a routine, something that brings you back to even keel, whether you're going good, whether you're going bad, something that you can just rely on and go back to work the next day at practice, something that gets you back to exactly where you want to be. So a lot of times with freshmen, they come in and they just have swing off the tee. Okay, I'll go right into machine. And they think they're ready for the day, but that's not a consistent process. Like, we want our guys to come in and have certain drills you're working on every day, certain drills that get you feeling right, have a whole process and whole routine that you're going. So by the time you step foot on the field, and whether it's a game or whether it's practice that day and you're hitting off a machine, you're as ready and as loose as your body can be, and you're ready to attack that day. So that's one of the biggest things that stands out to me, is just establishing a routine and having it and always being able to go back to that.
Hey, how do you help guys come up with that routine? I know you mentioned there having drills and things like that. Like, how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, so, everything's going to be individual to the person. We're not going to sit here and cookie cut hitters. What might work for Johnny isn't going to work for Roger. I'll kind of sit back, especially early on in the fall, and kind of see where I might see some deficiencies in their swing and what drills could be helpful. And you know what? Someone's routine might be 5 minutes. It could be that simple, but it's the little things that get them right. And someone else's routine might be 20 minutes, just depending on what it takes. So I will dictate some drills just based off what I think would help them. If someone's struggling to stay in their lower half, emphasizing drills that get you in your legs and using your legs to swing. If it's a guy that's having problems getting around the baseball, working on the hand path and stuff that's shorter, and little drills like that where it's in a controllable environment off the tee and the ball's not moving, and we can really just hammer that down and focus on that. So again, it's going to differ from hitter to hitter, but it's little things like that.
Justin, we've had people on the podcast, hitting guys, that some guys don't like the tee. What are your thoughts on your guys? Not just maybe just tee work, but some guys they don't want their guys doing underhand flips. It's all overhand. What's your philosophy on the training environment?
Yeah, I think from person to person, it can be different. But if we're just talking about the generic baseball player, I think a tee is a good place to start.
Yeah. What about at Greensboro, like specifically your guy?
Yeah, with our guys, we emphasize the tee a lot. Just again, it brings a controllable environment where the ball's not moving, the machine's not spinning it 2 inches left one time and 2 inches right the next time. Every pitch is right where you want it to be. And that way we can hone in on the mechanical things and the stuff with our swing that we want to, and we can worry about that specifically. So we emphasize having some sort of routine off the tee, whether, again, it's very short and it's 2 drills, or whether some guys love it a little more than others and use it for a lot more. But we definitely don't mind the underhand toss. Like, again, I think there's a lot you can do, much more controllable environment. It simplifies the game. As you know, and everyone knows, baseball is already a very complex game. Like, I like to try to simplify it and make it controllable as much as we can. So we do emphasize those 2 things and wanting to use it. But again, it's not an end all be all. There's some guys where I've talked to and we have open communication with, and they're not as big of a fan as the team. They don't use it. And, as long as they talk through their process with me and their routine and it works for them, I'm okay with that too.
Is there somebody or is there several people maybe that you look up to when it comes to hitting, or maybe you've learned a lot, maybe you worked underneath them, or just kind of like where did you come up with a lot of these things that you know and they're teaching your guys? Obviously, it's different for everybody. When I was working with hitters, you'd steal stuff from here, maybe online, Twitter, you see some stuff and some other stuff over here. Is there a place you go?
Yeah, you mentioned you're going to grow in this game as you go along. You're going to kind of pick and choose things from a lot of different coaches. A lot of the stuff that I've taken from comes back from, again, when I was a little kid and working through with Derek Graham, Coach Graham. And then unfortunately, one of our coaches passed away at this time, but Coach Peanut was his nickname. Like, I learned a lot from him. And then learning from my high school coach, like, it's kind of a combination of everything I've learned. And then getting to work under Coach DeTringo the past 2 years before I stepped into this role. Great baseball mind. I was able to pick his mind a little bit and, pick up. I learned a lot of cues from him. He was a bigger guy of using visual cues for the guys to look at as opposed to trying to offer mechanical adjustments. And so that's something I've learned from him and implemented, and it seemed to work really well with our guys. So it's definitely a combination of a lot of different coaches, but I don't credit myself a lot with all the stuff I've come up with, but more so the people I've learned under.
Visual cues. What's an example of that?
Yeah. So if our guys are going to the opposite field or getting long, one that we like to use is, hey, try to hit a ground ball at the second baseman instead of trying to say, hey, let's be short to the ball, stay inside of it, drive it that way. Well, let's change the thought process. Let's give him something visual. Most of the time you'll have a guy shagging out there at second and, hey, hit it right through his kneecaps. And it works for some guys. Other guys, it doesn't. But for most guys, it's able to give them something visual to look at and try to achieve instead of making them think more with the mechanical cue. And then obviously we have the simple ones, knob to the ball, but that's one of the big ones that we use here.
I like that. What's your take on where guys set up in the batter's box?
I'm not a big guy, a proponent of moving up in the box when you get to two strikes or moving back. Like I think your two strike approach, I think it's important with some guys, but also at this level, no one says you can't take your best swing in two strike counts. And we can still do damage in those counts. So I do emphasize that with the guys a little bit. Obviously the focus then shifts to not as much where we're standing in the box, but being willing to expand the zone a little bit, being willing to fight off the pitcher's pitch and understanding that at some point he's going to make a mistake and that's the one that we have to hit. So in terms of where they're standing in the box, that's not as big to me as understanding what parts of the plate that we're looking to hit. Most pitchers at this level are looking to attack the outer third. It's one of those things where we can eliminate the inside third when we get to two strikes. And if a pitcher executes that pitch, you tip your cap because that's a hard pitch to execute. If you miss 2 inches to the left, it's right over the heart of the plate. If you miss 2 inches to the right, it's probably in the middle of your numbers on your back. So understanding that where they want to attack us and being willing to hit that pitch and sacrifice the inside part of the plate.
That makes sense to me. And I've always thought this too when it comes, because you hear sometimes people say, and there's that famous, of course, that Pete Rose clip of him talking about moving around in the box. And I guess the way I've always thought of it is like, man, like why, if a guy is throwing slower or if it's two strikes and you move up in the box, like, are you practicing that a ton of the time too? Because if not, then I feel as if your perception of everything is off, now that you're scooting up further and you never practice it at all too. That's just my own opinion, but it's something that some coaches are big onto that, some aren't as much. What's the competition like in your guys' league when it comes to like pitchers? Like the average Friday guy, let's just say, that you guys would face, like the ace of the other team, like what's his stuff usually like?
It's gonna differ. We are definitely more of a hitting conference. I'm not going to shy away from that.
That's
fact.
good for you,
We're going
right?
to see good. No, it's great for me, man. It's a lot of fun. I'll say that. But no, we still have our fair share of really good arms. I'd say at the top of our conference, probably the average of a Friday guy you're going to see is going to be around those 87, 89 numbers. You're going to have a few guys that run it up into the low 90s, just depending on the team. And then a lot of those Friday guys are going to have plus breaking balls as well, at least one other pitch that they can command in that zone. Again, it depends on the team. You'll have some other teams where it's more of a crafty lefty as the Friday guy, and he's going to be more 81, 83, but he works to both sides of the plate and has a good changeup that mirrors well with his fastball, and it's just as difficult as hitting that 89, 91 mile an hour fastball.
When you guys are facing that guy who's that crafty lefty, that 81, 83, how does your guys' approach change, or does it change?
So our approach is pretty set in stone. So in general, our approach is we want to attack the top half of the baseball and live in our gaps. And I'm not talking about trying to chop down on baseballs or anything, hit ground balls, but theoretically, if we can get our barrel in the zone as early as possible and hammer line drives into the gap by attacking the top half of the baseball, to me, that creates a little more margin of error in the swing, because now if we're a little earlier, naturally you get a little more launch angle in your swing. And now that when we're early on is your poolside homer. When you're a little later now and you're beat by a pitch, the barrel's already in the zone. That's your low line drive, hard ground ball through the opposite infielders. And it normally leads to a lot of backside singles. So when we get to that crafty lefty, it's just a little more emphasizing, instead of being necessarily gap to gap. For righties on that lefty, it's, hey, we've got a hammer beat in our oppo gap. Because if we can stay in our oppo gap directionally and timing wise, that's going to keep us on that changeup that he wants us to get out in front, or that curveball that he wants to backdoor. It gives us room for adjustability and things like that. So it's just a matter of emphasizing the approach just a little more.
I know earlier when you were talking about your own background, Justin, you talked about how you've done some stuff in travel baseball when first starting out. What was your experience like in travel baseball?
It was a lot of fun, honestly. And I think it's changed a little bit since I was playing travel baseball. I don't think it's necessarily for worse or for better, but it's a little different now. But I got to play under a lot of prestigious coaches with the program that I was at, a place where they really give you the opportunity to showcase your skills in front of other coaches by having you at the right tournaments at the right time. And I met a lot of really good buddies through that as well. Guys that I still talk to this day. We got recruited from the same team to go play at High Point, so that I got to play with for 6+ years. The competition is really good. I think, again, it's going to be dependent upon the organization you're in. You see a lot of good competition. You get the opportunity to be out in front of college coaches, college scouts. Like I said, I think it's changed a little bit nowadays. I think the emphasis has switched a little more. But I enjoyed my time. I thought it was really beneficial to me in my recruiting process.
And then, if I'm mistaken, correct me, but didn't you, after you were done playing, help coach some travel ball too?
I did. So I had been coaching travel ball the past 3 summers. This will be the first one where I'm not. My first 2 summers, I coached with Team Elite, again, a well-known program. Mm-hmm. The director of the North Carolina, South Carolina region is a really good family friend of ours that we've known since I played with his son since we were 8-10 years old. And he reached out to me once I finished my playing career, and I was able to get my feet wet in coaching in that sense. So it was cool to be on the other side of it, not being the player, but getting to be the coach, and being at the college level at that time too, coaching and helping these kids to start understanding what we're looking for in players, like the little things. It goes beyond what you could do on the field, but it's also about how you approach the game, your attitude. Are you showing up your teammates on the field? Are you walking off the field after an error, just draping your head down, or you just flip the ball back to the pitcher? Hey, that's on me. I got it. Like, next ball, I've got the hustle, attitude, effort, little things like that. I'm not going to sit here and say that's all we look for, but that's a big part, because a lot of programs don't want to bring in guys that are going to just, let every little mistake derail them and derail their teammates. So those are little things. But then I got to coach with the Evo Shield Canes my last year, and getting to kind of give back to the organization that I played for was a really, really neat experience. And getting to talk to a lot of the same coaches that I played for, honestly, now talking to them as coaches and stuff, and getting to pick their brains a little bit and how they went about this process. It's a lot different than I remember as a player, in the sense of you don't get to see a lot of the coaching side of things when you're playing. There's a lot more that goes into it, trying to, at the end of the day, you're trying to get everybody a decent amount of playing time, because, again, like, their parents are paying a good bit of money to come play for the organization. It's definitely not a pay to play, but early on in the showcase tournaments where it's not bracket style, you're trying to showcase everybody. And then you get to a little more of the bigger tournaments. It's still putting out a competitive lineup with 9 to 10 guys and trying to win some things, but still trying to showcase everybody too.
Justin, you mentioned that there's obviously a lot of changes from the time you played to now. And so obviously, since, we're just coaching last year, what do you feel as if changed on the recruiting side of things? Like, is there something specifically that you have a main takeaway from coaching with the Canes just last year of the recruiting landscape that maybe you didn't know or weren't as aware of before?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say this pertains to the Canes, because I think they still do a phenomenal job, and Team Elite as well, with the way they run their programs and the way they showcase their kids and how they get their kids' names out there to other coaches. But I think at this level, especially, the biggest difference I've seen from when I used to play till now is, unfortunately, I think we run into a little more coaches where they're not necessarily coaching, and they're just out there, going about their business. And I'm not trying to talk bad on anything. I just think that's kind of the landscape. And a lot of it is with the generation nowadays. These kids think they know better than everyone, and getting a 16 to 17-year-old to listen to you as a younger coach can be hard at times. So I think that's kind of the biggest change I've seen, and trying to get enough coaches that can effectively communicate to these kids and get them to understand that we're doing this for you and that we're trying to showcase you in the best light possible. So that's kind of like the biggest difference I've seen.
Was there certain players that got recruited off some of the teams that you had coached, and maybe it surprised you who was recruiting them or who was interested? And was there other guys where it's vice versa, where you're like, man, this is a can't miss guy and nobody's looking at him?
Yeah, you run into both of those players for sure in your time coaching. I coached 216s and 214s. So obviously with my 214U seasons that I coached, that doesn't apply to them as much. They're still very young in the game. But with the 16s, there's definitely some kids where I was struggling to understand how they weren't getting looked at. And fortunately for me, being at a Division III program, like I'm able to coach at this level and coach showcase ball. And it's one of those things where we recruit a little differently. We focus more on a year-to-year basis. So some of these younger guys, I'm like, hey, in 2 years, if still nothing's popped up, like reach out to me. Like, I like what I've seen. I've got to coach you. I like the kids you are. And, I think you could be of service and help this program out. But there's both of those players on both ends of the spectrum where some got recruited, and quite shocking to me in a sense. But, I'm happy for them and glad that they got the opportunity. Like, I never want to see kids not get the opportunity that they deserve. And it works out for some and it doesn't for others. But that's just kind of the landscape of it.
And the ones who you were shocked by, why do you think it happened? Was it they played insanely well or insanely bad on just one day that a coach was there watching? Or what was if you had to put your stamp on why that happened, what do you think?
I don't think it's necessarily just a bad outing or one game. I think for a lot of these bigger programs now, with roster sizes being cut down to 34, they're a lot more stringent upon who they bring in and who they start recruiting at an earlier basis. And you can't fault those bigger programs. I mean, they've got a much more restricted roster size. They got to bring in people that they think is going to help them right away. And obviously the transfer portal, with that being the way it is nowadays and as big as of a factor as it is in today's day and age in college baseball, I think that definitely takes away from some of the showcase side of things. Again, you have the outliers of 16-year-olds that are throwing 95, 96. Like, that's going to get everybody's attention. But, the righty that's 80, 85, 87 with 3+ pitches in the zone, a lot of bigger programs might wait to see how that develops out, and even some smaller programs, just because, again, I think it's more so attributed to the transfer portal and the way that's really opened up and changed the game, NIL and things like that, as opposed to just one bad day or one bad weekend.
When does Greensboro start recruiting high school kids? What time of year?
So the way we work is we're basically, for the most part, going to recruit on a year-to-year basis. So right now we are still in our 2026 class that we started at the end of last summer, so tail end of August, and then we will finish that up here by the end of July. That's kind of how we go, and then we'll start moving into the 27s at the end of this summer.
And you may not know this, obviously you're at Greensboro, so that's what you're focusing on, but would you say that's similar across the board for other D3s too, that timeline?
I would say that it's probably similar. I think there's other places that might have, I don't want to say more of a luxury, but that look out ahead and are willing to get started a little earlier on the classes of the future as opposed to the one that's right in front of them. That's just kind of how we've done things here since I've been here, and it's worked out pretty well for us. We've gotten really good recruiting classes. A lot of times later in the summer anyway, we find a lot of the guys that have gotten overlooked for most of their recruiting process and end up coming to us and doing great things here. So, I think that could be the case for most D3s. Obviously, I can't speak to that because I'm not there, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's how most operate, but others have their other options where they recruit out further in advance.
So we talked before we started recording, and you're starting next week, right? It's the week of May 20th to go out and start looking for players. When you go out, you're going to be looking for 26s still, or are you going to be looking at 27s, but you won't contact them, or you're just going to follow them until late summer?
Yeah, it's going to be more of that, where I'm mainly going to be looking at 26s to really get on our radar, get to campus as soon as possible and get them on visits and stuff like that. But we're at the point of the summer too where I'll start marking down some 27s. I'll probably start the contact process and have them have my contacts so we can be in those conversations. And again, once we really fully dive into our 27s, get them to campus as soon as possible. So we're kind of in that transition period. The way I would say it is we're finishing the 26 class and looking to start that 2027 class here very shortly.
Do you think, Justin, that's because you guys know that every kid wants to play Division I or the highest level possible? And so your thoughts like, you know what, let's just wait until they realize that they're not going to be play Division I, and then we'll start recruiting them versus wasting all of our time doing the back and forth thing and them holding out to play maybe Division I?
We don't necessarily view it in that way. It could be that way for those kids and the way they look about it. Sometimes that reality check sets it a little later for some kids. And, I was that kid that had the hopes of playing D1 baseball. And obviously I did end up getting that opportunity, but I understand it. I'm not too far removed from college baseball. Like every kid's dream is to go play Division I baseball and play at the highest level. So I absolutely get it, but we don't look at it in the sense of, not that you're putting it this way, but it's like the hand-me-downs. That's not how we look at it. We're going to go out and recruit kids and get on their radar, and they might tell us, hey, like, honestly, not at the top of my list right now, but like my recruiting process is still open. And sometimes that comes back and we end up getting those kids. Sometimes we don't. We're going to go out and recruit the kids that we see best fit for our program, whether they think they're ready for it, whether they think it's the best option. We're going to go get the kids that we want.
And what types of kids are, and this is obviously a broad question, so feel free to simplify it and make it more narrow, but Greensboro, like what are the types of kids that you guys that fit your program? Is it personality? Some guys like those grinders. There's some guys who like maybe power hitters more. It is a little bit different for each. Like what's your guys' main mold?
We're at a pretty good spot in our program. We're fortunate enough where we could be a little picky with who we choose to bring in the sense of, the seniors and the players that have been here in the past have done a really good job at setting the foundation here and what we want it to be. The standard that they've created is absolutely phenomenal. So we're looking to bring in guys that aren't just going to come in here and keep the standard where it's at, but that are going to look to elevate that standard. And that starts with a little bit of, we're going to recruit kids that can play baseball. Don't get me wrong, that are really good at baseball, but it's a lot of the intangibles too that we want to look at, like good kids, good families, kids that are going to come in and that are going to work really hard. That's the type of kids that tend to have the most success at our program, are kids that are the first one out at the field and the last one to leave. The kids that tend to do that tend to get a lot of playing time here and tend to do a lot of really good things. So it's little things like that. Obviously, we have a really good offense because we recruit really good hitters. They make my job a whole bunch easier by having really good hitters. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, we'll go out for some power hitters at time, depending on what we're looking for. But there's just a lot of little things, it's simple things of a swing path and how consistent and how repeatable that is. We want the pitchers that have some velo, but also at most levels, and people could correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm starting to learn that the ability to command 3+ pitches in the zone is just as effective as the ability to throw 90, 92+. And so it's little things like that, but we're going to bring in really good people into our program on top of their athletic ability.
Yeah, like talk to us a little bit more about Greensboro as a program and as a school. For those who don't know, like why should they potentially be interested in your guys' program with all the other programs out there?
I don't like throwing this out too much because I feel like you hear every program and every coach say this, but I truly believe this is where it starts for us. It is truly one big family here, especially within the baseball program. And I think that kind of starts with the coaching staff and how this is all shaped up to be. Like obviously, Coach Fennessy, the head coach, came back here 5 years ago, and he's done an absolutely phenomenal job at putting this program back on the map and getting us into the spot that we're in now. He recruited me to play at High Point, was a part of the staff that recruited me to play there. And then now he's given me my first opportunity to be coaching at the collegiate level. So on top of that, I've known him for 6+ years now, and he's family to me. Our volunteer assistant, Christian Dix, he's been with Coach Fenn since he came back here as the head coach, and me and him are really tight. And then Cooper Ferguson, one of our assistants, played here until 2024 and joined staff after the prior coach that we had here, Coach Tetringo. Coach Fenn had known him since he was about 12, 13 years old. So again, it's kind of just that family bond that we've created on the coaching staff side of things that's really passed down and the kids have embodied here. If you've looked at our resume and what we've done, we have progressively gotten better these past 3 years. 3 years ago, we were 24-19, getting back on the map. Last year, we went 28-16-1 with a tie because the place didn't have lights, but so be it. But we were second in the conference and lost in the conference championship. And then this past year, we were 26-17. We won the conference regular season for the first time in program history. Unfortunately, we played really good baseball for the last month and didn't play our best brand of baseball the last 2 days when it really mattered. But I couldn't be prouder of the group of guys we had in, of the coaching staff, and where this program is heading, because the future is really bright. And I can't speak volumes to the kids that have come in and what they've created, especially this past senior class that just graduated. They've done a great job at setting the foundation of what it's supposed to look like here. And I'm really looking forward to what our future holds, because I think we're right there to being on the national spotlight at the D3 level.
Yeah, first off, congratulations on the conference championship for the first time ever. I mean, that's incredible. Talk to us a little bit about what's the area like, for example, what's around there. I've been to obviously North Carolina, but never been to Greensboro, so I don't know. I'm trying to help people visualize what life is like down there as a college student and just in the area in general.
Yeah, the Greensboro city is a lot bigger than people realize. honestly. It was a lot bigger than I realized. I didn't even realize being at High Point for 4 years. That's where I spent most of my time. And then coming here and getting to be right in the middle of Greensboro. Like our campus is right outside of downtown. We're 5 minutes down the road, if that, from UNCG. I always say you can pick to go 10 to 15 minutes in any direction and you're in a different part of Greensboro, but it's a really big city. It's a great place to be. The people surrounding the city, the things that are there to do. Again, it encourages our guys to go out and do a whole bunch of different team bonding activities. Like that's where our guys are really good about, is doing a lot of things together and constantly being together. And that's really allowed by this being in the city of Greensboro with the amount of different things that are there to do, whether it's bowling, whether it's going out to Topgolf, whether it's anything along those lines, movies, like anything you could think of. You're in a pretty big major city being in Greensboro.
Any good food options?
Oh, plenty of good food options.
What do we got? What are we working with?
So one of my favorite and go-to recommendations whenever families are here on a visit is a spot called Crafted. It's right in downtown Greensboro, about 10 minutes from our campus. And it's just a nice little unique taco bar. And they do different variations, really good food. You have a Stamey's Barbecue, really good barbecue spot. You got Max Pro Speed Shop, which is more of like your sports pub type environment with sports food and some barbecue options there too. But anything you could think of, it's here in Greensboro, I promise you that. But those are some of like the unique ones that I like to point out to guys to come and eat. But a lot of really good food here.
No, that's good. I'm really glad you didn't take that and start naming off chained restaurants or anything like that.
No, I'm telling you, one of my favorite spots that I really discovered this year is a place called Bites and Pints. It's just a very small business-owned thing, and we got to know the owner really well over this past year, and it's a nice spot. Again, kind of like a sports pub, but just a whole bunch of different options, and it's a unique spot. It's a very small, intimate environment. We've got Hop's Burger Bar right across the street from it. One of the best, I think it was nationally rated burger across the U.S. So there's food options here that I'm sure there's more that my guys could tell you about than I can. But no, there's a lot of different unique options. I'm not going to sit here and give you the basic ones that everyone knows of.
How close do you live to campus?
So I actually live right on campus. The Greensboro College has this neat thing where they have these little cottages that they offer for their assistants. So I get to live for free 99 while working here. So I'm never going to complain about that. So I'm right on campus. Seriously, man, it's a good little ordeal. But again, it helps out with the sense of our kids, if they ever want to get into the indoor cages after hours, I'm right on campus. They can just text me and I can go unlock that for them and they can get some extra reps in later at night.
When's the latest someone's ever texted you?
I'd say probably about 10:30. Thankfully for them, I'm not the earliest of early birds. I'm more of a night owl myself. So they know to text me if it's later at night as opposed to someone else.
Man, 10:30 at night, they need to get some swings in, huh?
Hey, sometimes all they can think about is baseball, which sometimes is a good or a bad thing. But, I'm never going to turn a kid down from getting extra work in.
No, 100%. Yeah, I'd imagine that like the players themselves, do they live on campus or is it off campus, hybrid? What's the living situation like for them?
It's hybrid. I'd say with our team, it's about a 50-50 split with kids that live on campus and kids that live off campus. Incoming freshmen are normally required to live their first 2 years on campus. Once they get to 60 credit hours, they have the option to move off campus, which ends up saving some money on the back end. So kids that come in with college credits have a easier access to that and get to that route a lot quicker. It's like I said, about a 50-50 split. And then our field's not right on campus. So we have some guys that live closer to the school, some guys that live closer to the field. That's all just a personal choice of which one you want to be closer to.
How far is the field from campus?
It's about 10-15 minutes, depending on the Chick-fil-A line going down the road to get there.
That's not too bad. Is it a pretty nice place though?
But not bad at all. It's pretty much a straight shot. Yeah, it's definitely been built up over the past couple years. And again, a lot of that goes to Coach Fennessy and the staffs here prior to him that have really embodied making that place much more of a college feel. And we've got the field in the best spot we've ever had it in. And it's definitely getting better. I'm not going to sit here and say it's Yankee Stadium because by no means is it not. But, we have everything we need out there for guys to develop and for guys to get better. And honestly, our guys have really come to embody that place. It's at a recreational park, but we call it the TED. We call it Defend the TED, and they really embody that. And we tend to play really good baseball there.
The facilities piece has always baffled me a little bit in the sense of I don't really know how that really helps a lot from a development. Like you'll hear people say, I want to go to the best facilities, looking for better facilities. And I was like, man, I look at how many people live in Latin America, and then I look at the percentage of them in the major leagues. And then I look at their facilities down there and I'm like, what's the big deal with all these facilities? I think at the end of the day, it comes down to coaching and putting yourself in a good environment around good people more than anything else. But it's good that you guys are sounds like you're doing everything you can to make it as best as you can, which is, you should always obviously do that.
Absolutely.
But I don't know, maybe that's just me getting older.
I think it's a little bit of both. Don't get me wrong. I think better facilities can absolutely help out, but I don't think it's the end all be all. I think it's a lot of the stuff you touched on, like kids that are coming in and want to work and want to get better. You can do that anywhere, regardless of the facilities that are there. And then again, I think a lot of it falls on coaching, being able to work with what you have and understand that it doesn't solely fall on the facilities you have. And, if you want your kids to develop and you want them to get better, you're going to make it work regardless of what you have available to you. And I feel like as a coaching staff, that's where we've been really good at. And again, that's not to discount the facilities that we have, because we do have a lot of options and a lot of different facilities open to us, but, probably not as much as some of the higher end schools, higher end D3 or any D2, D1 programs. But I have that talk a lot where I don't like viewing us and talking to recruits as us as a D3 program. I say this all the time, where I think it's completely bestowed upon the coaching staff and the coaches to give you the best possible experience. Like, we can absolutely give you a D2, D1 experience here by the way we choose to develop you, how we go about that process, and how we coach you.
Last question for you. This past season was your first year, you said, as the hitting coach. So heading into next year, what's one thing, maybe the answer is nothing, but what's one thing that you will change based on what you learned this past year?
If I told you nothing, Patrick, that'd be a lie.
I didn't want to put words. I didn't want to make you. I didn't want to make you say something.
I think there's something to learn, no matter what level you're at every year, that you could take away from. Don't get me wrong. I think I did a lot of things pretty good this year. Again, I'm gonna give all the credit to my guys, and especially my hitters. They're the ones that go out there and compete and have to go out there and play baseball. So all that credit goes to them. But a spot that I think I could be better at is just the way I communicate with everybody. I think there were some kids this year that, unfortunately, I wasn't able to get to where they wanted to be and where I wanted them to be. At the end of the day, I'm going to wear that one on the chin and say that I've got to be better in that sense, where understanding that, again, like I talked about at the beginning, that every hitter is different. Mm-hmm. And there were some kids where I just couldn't find their cue. I couldn't find their mechanical adjustment throughout the season. And that's somewhere I want to be better, being understanding that I've got it from 1 to 50. I've got to be able to develop every kid, because that is my responsibility, not just the 10 to 15 guys that we're going to run out there, but also the other 10 to 20 hitters that we have. Like, it is my job to develop everybody and not just the guys that are on the field every day.
Great stuff, Justin. Appreciate you coming on. I'm looking forward to following your own career too. You're a well-spoken coach, younger coach, which is great, because that means, and hopefully you're in this thing for the next 50 years, because I think this is our first time
50,
talking.
50 is a long time, but I hope I'm in it for a while. Don't get me wrong.
It's a long time, but right? I mean, you never know, especially with medicine and everything. Maybe even longer. We'll see. Who knows what it looks like then? But if people want to follow you, if they want to follow the program, is there a Twitter handle that they should go to?
Yeah, you can follow us on Twitter. Coming up with the handle off the top of my head, that's not a good look. But fortunately, we had an intern that was really good with us this year, and she helped us out a lot running some of the social media stuff. But, if you follow us on Twitter at GC Pride Baseball, that's the biggest one where we're going to have a lot of stuff posted. And then on Instagram as well, if you want to follow us at Greensboro College Baseball, just like that. And those are the two main platforms that we use. We have a TikTok as well. I'm pretty sure that's just GC Baseball, but that wasn't as much of my forte. I was good with the Instagram and the Twitter. TikTok's a little newer to me, and how to operate that's not my finest hour, but that's the Twitter and the Instagram are definitely the two that to follow us on and follow our success. And hopefully we get to put on a show for everybody this next coming year.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on, man.
Hey, Patrick, I appreciate you having me. You have a good one.